How do you process death knowing what you know?
It's not about knowing what you know. It's also about having faith. What I've seen as a medium is that you can believe in the other side. You can believe in the afterlife, but grief still hits you. Grief takes everything that you believe, everything that your soul believes, and it turns it upside down. Your father also says to me that what he wants you to know and what he's learned from the spirit world is this. He has been with you. He's been watching over you entire life. He wants to thank you for the way that you've taken care of your mom and your family afterwards, because you've really stepped into the role that he wanted for you.
Oof.
All mediums get messages through their thoughts. Did I lose you for a second?
Maybe my dad is here because there's some electrical stuff going on right now, but I'm not
Okay,
sure.
yeah, because it keeps flickering on my end. That's weird.
What's up, y'all? It's your boy David. This is Dead Talks. Thank you all that keep coming back and watching the show. Anyone new to the show, consider hitting the subscribe button. And if you are watching and like this episode, engage, hit the like button, helps get the show out there. This is my life now, people. But anyway, today's guest is Matt Fraser. He's one of America's top mediums. He's been on E! Entertainment. He's all over social media, and this guy is so much fun. Full of so much personality, so many incredible stories about his mediumship, connecting to the other side, what he thinks happens in the afterlife, and he doesn't push it on anyone. If you want to believe it, believe it. If you don't want to believe it, don't believe it, but have some fun with the dialogue, because I know I did. And again, I want to thank you guys for always being here, always showing up, and helping me get this show out here. It means the world. So let's get into the episode. Anything you don't want to do?
No. I will do anything. The only thing that I think that would be really good here, actually hearing it from your mouth, is the fact that a lot of the reason why I haven't written a grief book yet, believe it or not, is because a lot of people don't realize that they're going through grief. They don't realize that they're in grief. They don't like the word grief. They don't want to hear the word grief. But, you know, what I've learned as a medium is that we all go through grief, and even psychics and mediums go through grief. And I think that might be like a really good point to hit on, because grief can block us from sensing and feeling our loved ones.
You know, that's actually a great segue to actually start this conversation. You know, I do a hi, Matt, by the way. It's just for everyone that's thinking this is the first time. It's always funny when I start a podcast, everyone says like hi, but I'm like, weren't you guys talking before the episode started? Anyway, Matt, thank you for being here. And I think that's a great way to start the conversation, because it is something I've been fascinating with someone with your skills, abilities, for however you describe them as a medium. How do you process the death of other people and grief in your life? Because I always feel like, you know, if you have these tidbits of information or these abilities that most people don't, at least aren't tapped into, how do you process death knowing what you know?
Well, it's not about knowing what you know. It's also about having faith, right? Because what I've seen as a medium is that you can believe in the other side. You can believe in the afterlife. You can believe that there is life after death, but grief still hits you. What grief does, and what nobody sees coming, is grief takes everything that you believe, everything that's right in front of your eyes, everything that your soul believes, and it turns it upside down. And I see this happen so many times. I mean, I've had priests come to me that were in grief. I've had other psychic mediums that have come to me that have been within grief. I've had spiritual people come to me and be like, Matt, why is it that I'm questioning everything since my husband died, or my son died, or my daughter died? You know, I've even seen it, you know, go as far as people who were so religious to taking the cross off of their neck, to not wanting to celebrate Christmas anymore just because they lost a loved one. And the thing is that many people don't realize that they're going through it, and they don't realize that that's what grief is. And they have this hidden anger and this hidden, you know, these hidden questions and all of these things that, unfortunately, if left unaddressed, can ruin your life. And what I've learned as a medium is this, is that, of course, there is life after death, but it's also how we process it. It's about taking what you know, and also not letting go of your loved ones, but learning how to keep in touch with your loved ones, learning how to stay in touch with them in their world from our world. And I want to share with you a story just to kind of illustrate this. There was a woman who came to me, a very, very good medium. And she came to me seeking my help, had a very big, large following. And she said, Matt, I need your help. I do what you do. And since the passing of my mom, I'm having such a hard time. I don't believe in my gift anymore. I don't believe in me, because my mom passed away. And, you know, I haven't been able to get in touch with her. I haven't been able to talk to her. I haven't been able to speak to her. Why is that? And, you know, I could tell it was really bothering her. She was breaking down in tears. She was, you know, basically telling me that everything that she knew turned upside down the moment her mom died, because as a medium, she couldn't do the one reading that she needed the most. And that was the reading for herself. And when I tapped in, her mom was on the other side. Her mom was there. Her mom was, you know, speaking to her. But the hard part is that she wasn't used to, you know, seeing her mom in that way, to sensing and feeling her mom in that way. And that's what I had to come back and really work deep to show her, listen, that connection is still there. It's just Now you're going from dealing with your mom on a physical level, right, to being able to touch her and feel her and have her there in your house with you, to now having to recognize her in spirit form. And I think that that's the hardest thing that people deal with when losing a loved one, is it's still your loved one, but we have to sense and feel them in a different way. And psychics and mediums have to do the same.
Yeah, it's interesting. This might be a terrible comparison, but I always think about it when, I see therapists or even grief experts or people that are in more the clinical aspect of the grief or dying experience. And I always, when I have conversations with them, like they get kind of distorted as well. They may have all these tools. Granted, we're talking two different worlds of tools, but nevertheless, like they're the ones that you think would have more of a grasp on the situation, but it just flips your world upside down. And I think that is the coping mechanisms that you brought up in regards to like having this different, spiritual and material relationship is obviously important. But I wonder, that I feel like understanding that during the process is important, but I wonder the preventative measures. And that's like my big thing. Preventative is still going to rock your world, but in a sense of having these conversations and maybe hearing stories like yours, I just wonder if do you believe that'll ease the transition when the moment comes? Of course, it's still going to rock your world, but do you think that has any preventative measure of just being a little bit more prepared by hearing stories like yours?
I definitely think so. I mean, it happened for me, right? My grandfather was my best friend. He came to my shows. He came to my events. My dad was at sea when I was a little boy. My dad was in the Navy. So I didn't see him for, months and months. One time, I didn't see my dad for a whole year. So my grandfather was the one that really stepped up, that really helped to raise me, that was there through all moments of my life where my own dad couldn't be. And my grandfather was, my number one. And he always said to me all the time, I'm going to be there for your wedding day. I'm going to be there when you have your first child. I'm not going anywhere. And, unfortunately, my grandfather got really ill before I had gotten married, before I had had a child, before I had gotten married, before I went through these major milestones. And I remember that I went through grief in a different way. I went through grief before my grandfather even died, because the moment that the doctor sat us down and said, your grandfather has stage 4 cancer, immediately my heart sank. I knew he was going to die. And immediately I thought, oh my God, all of these things that I felt so comfortable with, knowing he was going to be there for my wedding, knowing one day he was going to get to hold my child, these things are not going to happen. But, after I came to, and after I went and I, had my emotions, I reached out to spirit and I said, what can I do right now? What can I do right now that's going to help my tomorrow be better? And, it's the same thing that I talk about, that I ask the spirit world when I do readings for clients. I do readings for myself. I contact the spirit world. And what spirit told me was this: make the memories now. What you're planning to do in the future, do them now. And luckily I had that time with my grandfather. So, I told my grandfather I was planning on marrying my wife, Alexa. We told him that we were going to have a kid and we wanted to have 3 children. We told him, we unveiled the plan while we were still alive. We took pictures with one another. We spent time with one another. I brought him to the casino, out to eat. We had that last year of his life, we did everything that we would have done, 5 years from now. We just compiled it into this short amount of time. So when he left this world, I said everything that I wanted to say. I had every moment with him that I wanted to have. He met my wife. He met everybody. We had these amazing memories that I still carry with me to this day, and it helped me later on. But like I said, we all grieve at different moments, and it's recognizing that grief and saying, how can we change it? Sometimes we can change it before if we have the time. Sometimes it's harder because we have to work after the fact to button things up and to have those conversations after and really get us back to a good place so we can sense and feel and talk with our loved ones again.
Yeah, how does that work for, people that are more closed off to this? Whether, I don't know, you could tap into whether energetically closed off is a thing, but people that, I've had these conversations. I've seen it's been very divisive. I've seen this, that, and the other in regards to different beliefs and people just completely shutting it off. How does that apply for people that don't believe in this?
Well, I think that there's pushback and there's people who try to shut it down for 2 reasons: out of fear and pain. I think all of that comes from fear and pain because, everyone's open to new things, right? Or at least we try to be open to new things. But when you get a lot of resistance, when you get a lot of pushback, that's a pain point. That's someone who's really deep in grief. And I too have met people who are not ready for a reading yet. They're not emotionally ready there. And that just means that they have to take steps in their life to feel a little bit more at ease, because here's what I've learned. And this is something that I feel like more mediums need to talk about, is that your loved ones in spirit are only going to come to you if the message is going to help you. If your mom or your dad or your son or your daughter has passed away and you're not in a good place And delivering a message is going to cause you more doubt, more fear, to question things, to question their passing, their life, whatever it may be. They're going to hold off. They're not going to come through, because the end result for your loved ones is to show you that they're at peace. And also, because they're at peace, they want you to be at peace. And that's why they come through in a reading.
And can that message go both ways? Like, in regards to you saying that if it's only going to help you, but maybe you just, I guess it's the same thing, but maybe you just don't need a message right now. Maybe things are going fine. It doesn't necessarily mean that this, that, the other. It's just like, this isn't the time to receive a message regardless, because I'm going to get a little personal real quick. Like, I got this message from someone online, and, I'm East Coast Italian. I keep my ears behind my head. So, like, I believe in this, but at the same time, you never know. I got a message from this woman, and she's like, I have this gift. I don't do it for money. I'm not asking you for money. Like, this isn't I have other things I do, but I just felt called to tell you this. And again, I'm going to fast forward and come back. I never heard from her again after this, which is the wild part, even after I responded. She said something along the lines of, your father is always with you. He hasn't come to you in a way that maybe you wish he would, because if he did too early, you wouldn't be as curious as you are. And you being a seeker and being as curious as you are is one of your biggest strengths, and which has allowed you to do maybe what I'm doing right now. Because the unique thing is, to me, is I do believe, I resonate with this stuff. I always felt there was a wall, some weird invisible wall that I can't really pinpoint. But I feel like I'm open to it, like mentally, like maybe, but then again, maybe it's my heart. But then what does that mean to you when she says, because of your greatest strength being a seeker and being curious, that's why he hasn't revealed himself to you yet? But when he does, it will be profound. You will have no doubts. But how does that relate to me being curious when he hasn't reached out to me in that way? Does that make sense?
Well, instead of answering that question, let me give you a story that I know is gonna resonate to you, because it happened in my life. So my grandmother, who was psychic. So my grandmother was a psychic medium, passed her gift on to my mom, who passed it on to me. My grandmother died when I was just 3 years old. And when she had passed away, she was my mom's everything. I mean, my mom and my grandmother were best of friends. And my grandmother, was literally the guiding force behind my mother. And of course, my mom being psychic, my grandmother being psychic, my mom said to my grandmother before she died, because she had time with her, listen, Ma, when you get to the other side, there's certain things that I want you to do so that I know that you're with me. I want you to appear in full body apparition. I want you to sit at the ends of my bed. I want you to, bang on the wall. My mom gave her all of these things so that when she got to the other side, she could come back and show my mom that she was okay, the afterlife was real, all of this stuff, and that she could give my mom peace. And I'll never forget it. My grandmother said this to my mom, because this is a conversation that we always talk about. My grandmother said to my mother, Angela, when I get to the other side, I'll do all of that. If God allows me, and I can come back in full body apparition, and I can appear in front of you and sit on your bed and do this, I will do anything that God allows. She said, but if God doesn't allow me to do it, she says, I'll come to you using a series of signs. And the signs are going to be signs around my birthday, anniversary, special numbers so that you know that they're with me. And more importantly, she goes, I'll come and visit your son, and you'll know that it's me. So my mom said, okay. Well, don't you know that my grandmother passed away? And then after she had passed away, my mother sat waiting every night. She waited for my grandmother to appear in full body apparition. She waited for the knocks on the wall. She waited for all of these things, and nothing happened. It was silence. Until one day, and I'll never forget it, at that time I was around 4, maybe 4.5 years old. It was about a year later. And I remember going and my grandmother coming to visit me. And my grandmother used to visit me every night. I remember my grandmother sitting at the ends of my bed, and I would see her and she'd read stories to me. And my grandmother would come and, show me that she was with angels and talk about who she was with. And one day my grandmother came to me when I was just 4, and she said to me, I want you to deliver this message to your mom. I want you to tell your mom that you saw me, that grandma was okay, but that I can't come to her yet because I don't want her to see me like this. And second of all, because I don't want her to keep searching for me. She keeps searching for me, and I need her to live her life. I don't need her to live a life for me. And, I want her to know that it's okay to separate from me. We were close here in this world, but now it's time for her to go down her own path. And, I can't keep her stuck waiting for me. So I remember just being 4 years old, and I don't remember the exact message. Remember like this, my mom told me this, years later. But I remember going up and telling my mom, Grandma came to me and Grandma told me this, and this. And I remember my mom breaking down and crying. And as a little kid, I didn't know why my mom was crying. I thought I had hurt my mom or said something that was upsetting to her. My mom was like, that was actually the first reading I'd ever given. And those were tears of joy. Like my mom was like, that's exactly what I needed. And it also, all these years later, it proved to me something else. It proved to me that at that exact moment, my grandmother realized that coming back and doing all those things that she promised before she died wouldn't benefit my mom. It would hurt my mom. And that's the reason why she didn't do it. And after that message, my mom was really able to let go. And once she started doing that, she was able to receive signs from my grandmother and dreams from my grandmother. And just as my grandmother said, the signs with different birthdays and holidays and celebrations all aligned with certain dates around her life. So, what I want you to know is that the messages that come are messages that we need when we need them. And there is a higher power that's there that controls how and why our loved ones come through. And every soul, I can tell you as a medium, communicates differently. And even for me as a medium, there are some days where I'm like, where the hell are my loved ones? I sense my grandmother, I sense my grandfather, but I don't get messages all the time. And like you, sometimes I'm really longing for those messages. But when there's something big, when there's something I need help with, guaranteed those messages come and they're there.
I love that. That was the best way to answer a question through a story. That was crazy because it's like I haven't gotten bothered by it. Maybe I'm 35 now. I've been having these conversations for a while. My opinions or perspectives have definitely evolved. It's just kind of like, like Dad. It's like that kind of thing. It's like that East Coast again, Italian like that. Where the hell are you? But I'm not getting upset about it because I have believed that, I think if I'm supposed to get a message, this, that, the other, then I'll get it when I need, if at all. But then there's.
But I'll tell you right away, like not to interrupt you, but to interrupt you, your father is here. Like as I'm having this conversation with you, I sense and feel your dad. And first of all, when I'm connecting with your dad, he's a very different type of spirit than most, meaning that your dad was the type of person where he didn't like to go and overshare. That's not who he was. He shows me that he was very laid back. He kept things quiet within himself. He didn't share a lot of information. And when it comes to your dad, he tells me that the one thing that he's upset about on the other side, or the one thing that he wishes that he could have changed with his death, was what happened after the fact. Because your dad says to me that he was expecting more family members and more people to step up to take care of you and to be there for you. And instead, your dad tells me that you really had to go through this whole line through life through yourself. And your father also says to me that what he wants you to know and what he's learned from the spirit world is this. He tells me he has been with you. He's been watching over you entire life, but your loved ones know your journey and what you're supposed to do. And your dad tells me that he already knew that this was going to be your journey. He already knew that this was going to be, where your soul was headed, meaning helping people understand life after death, guiding people through the grief process, helping people to heal. Your dad knew that this was laid out, and your dad tells me that he's very proud of that because he tells me that his death wasn't for nothing. Through his death, you've used it to help all of these people, not just yourself, but every person that you communicate with. And you don't realize how many people you're actually helping. And I do see when I'm connecting that what's so beautiful is your father's also telling me that he wants to thank you for the way that you've taken care of your mom and your family afterwards, because you've really stepped into the role that he wanted for you and wished. And those are things that can't be taught.
Whew. Can I ask you a question on that? Thank you for sharing that, by the way. Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
If you even know, what do you mean that, loved ones weren't looking after me in a certain way? Because I feel like I've lived my life thinking that they have. You know what I mean? Like I haven't exactly felt, if anything, I felt like I had an extremely strong support system.
With your father, he says to me that he was hoping here in this world that there were certain people that would come over to the front of the line to help you out as a child. What he means by that, I'm not exactly sure, but he shows me that what had happened versus what he thought was going to happen was something completely different. So without naming people, I feel like it's his way of acknowledging that he thought life would be easier for you.
Oh, interesting.
I'm also saying, hold on wait a second. He's also keeps showing me a watch. Do you have a watch of his?
A watch of his?
Yeah.
No, don't have a watch of his.
You sure? There's a watch that I keep seeing that I feel like was either passed down or was given.
Unless my mom didn't give me a watch, I don't have a watch of his, no.
Not one that's expensive. I see this because there wasn't many things that were kept of your dad's, but I do feel like I want you to ask your mom if she has that of his. I see like this old watch that he's showing me that was his that he would use every day.
Interesting. No, I don't know. I'd have to ask him. I feel like I've asked my mom recently about some things that little knickknacks, but we don't. That's just true. We don't have a lot of things of his. If I got something right next to me of his right now, but that's like it. We don't have a lot of things of his, but a watch doesn't ring a bell. But I will circle back to this in case there is something from my mom. So stay tuned for that. But I have a question in regards to the signs that you're getting, like, because a lot of it, you're how do you see it? Like you said, you just saw a watch, and you're getting these messages. Is it? Do you hear it? Do you see it? Because I feel like mediums may get messages in different ways.
Yeah, so all mediums get messages through their thoughts, right? Because we access the same wavelengths that you access when you're sleeping. That's why everyone is psychic through their dreams. Because when you're dreaming, you're actually going and accessing a part of your mind that you don't when you're awake, which allows the spirit world to come through. Because every day we have different thoughts, right? We worry about getting in the car, getting the bills paid, the kids, all of these things. And when we're sleeping, we don't worry about those. We don't worry about, having all those day-to-day things, which makes us makes it easier to connect with spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Did I lose you for a second?
Yeah, I think. I mean, maybe my dad is here because there's some electrical stuff going on right now, but I'm not sure.
Okay, yeah, because it keeps flickering on my end. That's weird.
I mean, I just got a message on the app that this doesn't happen. It's still recording. You still see me, right?
Okay. No, I don't see you. On my end, you're completely frozen.
All right, let me try something real quick. Hang tight. Am I back?
Yep, you're back.
All right, let me make sure. Hopefully nothing just I don't know what's going on. Maybe my dad was trying to tell me it's not a watch, it's something else. Okay, there we go. I think we're good. You're back. You see me. Yeah, that's weird. It's interesting because I forget who I was talking to. Some woman who had a near-death experience, and she was talking about ever since she's got her gifts became stronger for whatever reason after that, and she's like. She warned me beforehand. She's like, sometimes electricity, which I know is a common theme, I think, with the other side. Correct me if I'm wrong. It started getting weird. And I feel like the time, and this just happened with us. So I don't know if this is just a coincidence or whatnot, but something's going down with the electricity.
No, it's definitely not a coincidence. I'm going to tell you why. When souls come through, right, they're energy. So when we die, we leave our physical body here. Our soul, which is energy, transitions on to the other side. And when those souls transition on, what's so beautiful is that they become energy. So what happens is that when weird things happen like this, like lights starting to flicker, electronics starting to have issues, all of a sudden, all of a sudden the fire alarm's going off when there's no fire, no smoke. What happens is it's not your loved ones in spirit playing with the electrical light or going and flipping the switch. What it really is them around us and visiting us. And when they visit us and they're around us, they can't help it. These weird things just start to happen. I can't tell you how many times this happens on set when I'm filming, when I'm taping. And if you actually see one of my shows, you'll always notice that I have two microphones on, a lapel and a handheld for that reason in case one of them goes out, because we've had weird experiences where batteries drain that are brand new, mics cut out, you name it, it happens. And
yes, it's so wild.
Yeah, and what I can tell you is that's the reason why a lot of people get the chills, right? Is that they're actually feeling that energy of spirit. But I can tell you that the way the spirit communicates with me is very different, right? They don't speak the same language that we do. So when I was seeing, the watch, I was seeing the symbol of a watch. Like I just saw like a watch on a table. When I was connecting with your dad and, I was seeing about his passing, he was showing me about the fact that, being here in this world, I was getting all of these thoughts and they come in the form of like just strong words. Like when I was connecting with your dad, I kept hearing laid back, reserved, like all of these different things that made up who he was. And, your dad has always been, and even if he was alive, like your dad would have been one of the people who had been a protector of you, but not somebody who would have been constantly like chirping in your ear or telling you what to do. Like that's just that's not how he was or how his personality was. And I feel like that's the same approach that he's taking on the other side.
And let me ask you, when you do have these sessions, like for instance, like you're telling me this, does he only give you or the spirit, however you will, give you certain messages that they feel they can, or can you respond back and ask for certain things?
So here's the way that it works is that you might want to connect with your loved one, but your loved ones actually want to connect with you. So like what happens is that our loved ones give us what we need or what they feel that we need at this moment. So what I mean by that is that your loved ones know what your heart is seeking, what your head is seeking, what your mind is seeking. And they know what has been holding you back from healing, from moving forward, from all of these things within life. And the reason why a reading is that you might be coming to a psychic medium wanting to know what happened to your mom's lost wedding ring because you can't find it and you're looking all over for it. But your mom doesn't think that that's important. What your mom really thinks is important is you taking care of your dad because he's in the hospital and just had a fall and wants to make sure that you spend time with him because, he's close to passing. This is the reason why our loved ones see things differently than we do, because we might be focused on one thing when your loved ones can see something completely the opposite.
Because they know at a different level than we do. So even though I might be focusing on I needing this answer from my dad, he might not give me that because my understanding of what's important is just not so.
I'll give you an example, and I always like to use a story to use a story, right? Because that's how I learn. I learn through the readings that I do. I don't know. I wouldn't have known everything that I know about the other side if it wasn't for my clients and the readings that I do. Let me just say that, and let me just say that I don't know everything there is to know about death and dying in the afterlife. However, if you talk to me in a week from now, I'm gonna know a hell of a lot more, because every day I'm learning something new. Every day I'm learning something different. I wasn't born with knowing. I'm learning every day. So there was this woman who came to me, and her son was murdered. And every single day after her son had passed away, this woman was going and searching for clues, searching for answers. I mean, she went through his phone. She went through his car. She went and she interviewed all of his friends. And every day she kept, newspaper clippings about his passing. She went down, she would, walk where he had died. She had gone and did everything that she could to try to put herself back in that moment to figure out who killed her son. And, she became, rightfully so, obsessed with this, obsessed with finding the answer, obsessed with finding the killer. Every day she would live and breathe this and walk this. When, unfortunately, when I connected with her son, she thought she was going to get the answer to who had killed him and what had happened. And, to hear that this person was going to get arrested. And unfortunately, it was the opposite. Her son said that, this person, was not going to get caught. This person was not going to get arrested. Unfortunately, this person, wasn't going to have someone to answer, was not going to be able to answer to a court system here in this world. But it's okay, because at the end of the day, the justice is that her son was at peace. He was on the other side. This person who had killed him could no longer hurt him anymore. And, at the same time, he wanted his mom to be able to go and to heal with that, because he wanted, as cruel as that was to hear, her son died and no one was going to be charged here in this world. He didn't want this to take away from her life. And, he saw that his mom was throwing years away, being angry, being mad, going around trying to figure this out, when really he didn't want the rest of her life to end like this. And
Jeez.
That's really why he came through. And he had said something that was so beautiful. He had said that sometimes we don't get justice here in this world. But that doesn't mean that our loved ones aren't at peace. It's not like, the movie Ghost, where our soul can't settle until that person gets caught. Because at the end of the day, there's some souls that go to heaven and there's some souls that don't. And what I can tell you is that when somebody does something truly, truly evil that turns their soul like murder, those souls aren't with the people that they killed on the other side. Those souls don't transition over. And that's what he was letting his mom know. So he was telling his mom, instead of focusing your energy on this, do something with my name. Because his mom, was the type of person where throughout his life, she had taken care of all of his friends. She loved his friend group. They loved her. She was everyone's mother here in this world. And he wanted to bring the joy back into her life. And I think that that's what our loved ones try to do for us every day.
Yeah, just to me, I'm pulling from that. Just there is just a level of trust and faith. And sometimes, I think the noise in our head may say one thing when it's not. It's just noise sometimes. Like I noticed you seem to be focusing on maybe something else, and he gave her a certain message that she felt, that spirit felt that she needed. But in regards to what you just said, one thing that really stuck out is like you weren't born knowing things. You continue to learn, which I think is a very key thing for people to specify. A lot of the conversations I have, they think they know. Well, it's, you're learning, which is a much different perspective of mediumship, I think, than some people that may not be listening as much. So how often, with what you're hearing, because like how often are you, quote unquote, feel like you're right? Is there any moment where you feel like you're a little bit shaky on getting certain information because you're dealing with the material world and some people that may be vulnerable during their grief, this, that, and the other? So it's like some would think you're fondling with dangerous waters because of someone's emotions. So is there any barrier or caution that you take in these moments, or are you just receiving messages, you're feeling good about it and taking it subjectively?
Well, first of all, the thing is that I can tell you that you have to make sure that the information that you're getting is 100% accurate, right? That's number one. But there's a difference. The spirit world is always right. God is always right. But I can tell you that as me, I'm a translator of spirit. So they're not, just like when I'm doing a reading, I'm not stopping and being like, hold on, wait a minute. Okay, your dad says this. really what it is they're using different ways to communicate. So I'll see signs, I'll see symbols, I'll feel things, I'll sense things. So readings are 90% accurate. There are some times when I'm going to say something that gets close but doesn't hit it on the head. Now, listen, if you see my YouTube and my television shows, I'm very good at what I do, but I can't take 100% of the credit and say that I'm 100% accurate because it's a translation. Just like, I'll give you an example. I was talking to my tour manager who's Portuguese, and I don't speak Portuguese, obviously. And he's like, Matt, he's like, I want to tell you this joke, but it's in Portuguese. So I'm like, okay. So he goes to translate it over to English, and by the time the joke comes out in English, it's not funny, right? And I'm like, well, that's not funny. And he's like, well, it's in Portuguese. I'm like, yeah, but I can't understand it because it was like the punchline was gone basically by the time it came to English, right? It wasn't 100%. So I knew what he was saying, but it just wasn't funny when it came out. Well, those things happen, and I'll share with you that, it just happened the other day where I just received this woman and her boyfriend came to my online group reading. And when I was connecting with her, I had seen her mother in spirit. Her mother was there. And I'm like, listen, I don't want to ruin a surprise, but your mother's telling me that you're getting engaged. And, she looked at her boyfriend looked at her and they're like, no, we're not engaged yet. No, there's no plan. And I'm like, I kept hearing K, like K. So I'm like, I think she's telling me K Jewelers. I keep hearing K. And they're like, no, we don't know what you're talking about. Well, anyway, 3 weeks later, I just received an email from the couple, and they were like, Matt, you're not going to believe this, but during the online reading, you were saying that my mom was showing an engagement ring, and we weren't engaged. Little did she know that before her mom died, her mom and her boyfriend went shopping and looking for rings together, and she got an engagement ring. The boyfriend had it while we were on the Zoom call. Obviously, he didn't want to give it up, but her mother's name was Kay. So when I kept hearing K, I assumed, being a medium, it was K Jewelers, right? Because she showed me a ring, I see K, I'm like, oh, this is K Jewelers. No, it was that her mother's name was K, and they went and bought the ring together, before she had died. They had talked about this. So this is how, when you translate, you're taking all of these things, like the wedding ring, the name, the words K, and you're trying to fit it into the story. It's never going to be the opposite. You're never going to see that somebody who died of cancer, actually was murdered. Those things don't happen. But like I said, sometimes those little tiny things, like someone's name might be Teresa, but you hear Terry, because that was a nickname. Those little things are where things can kind of get lost in translation a little bit.
Yeah, and that's like the blend between the spiritual world and being human, and how things just get lost in translation in general. And with that thought, I've heard you a couple of times use keywords like God, heaven. So how does that work with the relationship with religion? So are you using those words because that's what you see and believe, or are you using those words as some kind of more of decisive fact, like there is a heaven or God is God in a biblical sense? How do you see that?
Well, first of all, I see God in all things, and I see that heaven, I use the word heaven because I personally feel like heaven incorporates everybody. So instead of saying, oh God, your angels, your spirit guides, the archangels, the ascended masters, I feel like heaven is just a way of saying like everybody all at once. Your angels, your loved ones, your spirit guides, ascended masters. Because every day you're receiving information, you're being guided by really 3 groups of people: your angels, your loved ones, your spirit guides, and that also includes your pets that have passed on. So all of these groups of people, plus God and the angels, right, all encompass heaven. So sometimes we don't know where the messages come from. Sometimes we don't know, where we're guided to be or what we're guided to do. But heaven always knows. And those messages are, like I said, are either coming from your angels, your guides, or your loved ones. And that's why sometimes people receive messages of warning or see messages that push them forward, and they don't know where those messages are coming from. But they're coming from the other side.
And so how important is it from the material world and this meat sack that we got? All these 10,000 different religions, you know what I mean? And I was thinking yesterday when I was going for a walk, I was like, there's 10,000 different religions. At the end of the day, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And so how important are these religious beliefs and the differences that there are, and how do we kind of bring that all together as to what happens on the other side? Because again, using these words like heaven, God, angels, but even though I think you could interchange those words and they could be the same thing depending on what your belief is, like how do you kind of wrangle that together for people that have a strongly different belief as to what happens in the afterlife, if anything, and compared to what you've learned?
Well, you know what? I don't think there's any right and wrong. Like what I tell people, even with my teachings, is take what you want and leave behind what doesn't fit in your heart. For me, these are words that I feel comfortable in using. These are words how I see things. You might see things different, and that's okay. How you connect with heaven is your own way. I've learned that there's all different practicing religions. Doesn't matter if you're a Buddhist, doesn't matter if you're Catholic, if you're Christian, if you're Jewish, if you're Muslim. There is a way that we all connect with spirit, connect with God, connect with the afterlife. And, I read for people with all different religious backgrounds, some people who don't even have a religious background. And I can tell you there's only one heaven. We all get there. How we get there, right? And how we communicate and what feels right to us is different to everybody. It's just like, for example, you could be going to California. We're all going to get there a different way. Trains, cars, airplanes, right? We're all getting to the same place. It doesn't matter what vehicle you use, you're getting there, right? Some faster than others, but we still get there. So the thing is that that's how I view it. And that's why, like, even in my office, you'll see I was born and raised Catholic, but there's all different things from all different religions, because to me, everything's welcome here. And even though I was born Catholic, I got to tell you that, for me now, I consider my religion spirituality, because I welcome everything, every belief, everything that someone has. I don't shut anybody down, because anything is possible. And who am I to say?
I mean, again, I don't have. I'm not seeing things exactly how you are with your gifts, but I'm in the same boat when it comes to the spirituality aspect. That becomes a diluted word. But I was raised Catholic. I'm reading the Bhagavad Gita right now. Like, I'm reading a book on the case for Christ. I think to me, I've always said it's pretty similar to what you're saying. It's like what feels like, what resonates with me, and I always question why some people get so, they get worked up on someone not believing what they believe. Then I ask them, like, maybe you should look in the mirror and just question and really look at your beliefs a little bit stronger, not in the judgmental way. Just like, if you're getting bothered by someone else's belief, why should that affect? How does that have any effect on how you're going to get to California or heaven, as you say? You know what I mean? It's your personal journey. It's your personal beliefs. But I do wonder the question of, if everyone goes to, let's call it heaven, as you're saying, or in the afterlife, then there's that question I know we're going to get from us saying this is, okay, well, what about the people that are quote unquote sinning and doing all these horrible things? Everyone just gets to go to heaven?
Well, I mean, and this is the thing that I get beat up every day on the internet, right? Is that there's some people who will say that everybody gets to heaven. And I will tell you that they don't. And I've seen this, and it's actually funny, because Mediumship 101 is learning psychic protection. It's something that my grandmother taught my mom taught me, because there's a higher and lower vibration, right? There's a higher vibration, which is your angels, your guides, your loved ones, your family members that are there. And then there's a lower vibration. So the lower vibration is the souls that never have made it to the other side. So that lower vibration is actually filled with the souls that were truly, truly evil. So when I'm talking about evil, it's like, and this is where the line gets blurred, and people are like, well, what does that mean? Am I not making it to heaven? No, right? Like your neighbor down the street who was crotchety, who was old, who used to yell at you as a kid, that used to get upset because you used to let your dog shit on her lawn, right? She's getting to heaven, right? Just because she yelled at you when she was crotchety and she was mean or whatever it may be, doesn't make her evil, right? There's difference between evil. Evil is somebody who commits murder, that purposely takes a person's life and doesn't care. That's a person who is truly evil. Evil means that even God himself can't change that person back. So where do these people go? Well, that's the reason why we have haunted places, right? When you see people, ghost hunters, paranormal investigators, going into different places and picking up on energy and souls, they're not picking up on your grandmother, on your grandfather, on your people in heaven. They're picking up on evil souls. Well, where do evil souls come from? Well, they come from people that don't make it to the other side. So this is actually a topic that's very controversial that I didn't realize was controversial until I started talking about it. And then you would not believe the other mediums out there that, won't talk about this or won't speak about this. But here's what I've learned. I've learned that evil souls stay trapped here in this world, right? It's called an earthbound spirit, evil soul, evil entity, whatever you want to call it. And those are the souls that, like to be alone. So it's not like the Amityville Horror or something like that, where you're just going to wake up one day and have a evil spirit in your house, right? But you are going to have souls that creep to the far end of the earth where nobody else is. And they like to be, these souls are attracted to places that bad things happen. For example, abandoned insane asylums, abandoned hospitals, abandoned prisons, places, abandoned funeral homes, where there was a lot of grief and pain. So people think that the place itself is haunted because certain acts had happened there, right? obviously a funeral home had dead people in it. So people would think, oh, it's just haunted because of that. Well, it's not. It's actually haunted because these souls, will go to these abandoned places. It's always an abandoned place, right? It's never like a shopping mall or things like that. They'll go to these abandoned places because evil likes to be alone. And then that's the reason why a lot of times people who go and do these, paranormal investigators and whatnot will have these experiences with these evil entities and souls. And I'll tell you that through all of it's very rare, through all of my years of being a medium, there have only been about 3 or 4 cases where I've actually come in contact with an evil spirit. It's not because I went looking for them. It's because they were honestly clients of mine who came and had an experience. And all 3 of those cases were because they did something that they shouldn't. One was playing with the Ouija board, over and over and over again. And, unfortunately tapped in and lured in a soul that was bad. Another person was one that, thought that they knew that what they were doing, wanted to be saw on television the paranormal investigators and decided, oh, I'm going to do this. And didn't really know the full spectrum of this, and another one, did something very similar where they went to a place known to be haunted and was trying to, prove that there was no other side of the afterlife and unfortunately conjured something up. So the thing is this, and I know a lot of paranormal investigators, are my friends, and I will tell you that what you see on television is real, but there's also another side of this. And the other side of it is that paranormal investigators do many things to keep themselves protected before going into a situation like this. They're using sage, there's cleansing, there's, psychic activity, psychic techniques, you name it, they do it.
And so I want to clarify with that because you said the lower vibration and some of these evil souls, if you will, are seem to be active closer in our dimension. So what does that constitute? Like, what is that where they go, or is there another level to that people would, in this world would call hell, or this, that, and the other? Like, is hell a real place?
Well, I don't see hell as being a real place, no. But like I said, I think personally, this is my personal opinion, I believe after seeing all of this that people have had these experiences with negative souls, right? And now we have all of these terms out there that we're trying that people think are different things. For example, hell, earthbound spirit, evil spirit, demonic spirit. I think that this all is a soul that has not crossed over. They all can be looped into one category. The same way that we talk about heaven, you can call it the higher vibration, you can call it heaven, you can call it the afterlife, right? But that's one place. So it's kind of like there is no place with the devil and a pitchfork. I have not seen that in my readings, but I have seen souls that have not crossed over. And I need to say this, and I need to really clarify, because unfortunately there's this truth that's here, but then there's also there's some mediums out there who unfortunately aren't legitimate and will try to take advantage of people and say, oh, your son's not at peace, he didn't make it to the other side because he passive suicide, or your son's not at peace because of the killer wasn't found, or this and this. Let me tell you that, first of all, that's just not true. What I can tell you is that the only time a soul does not cross over is if a soul was truly evil. We go through a process called the life review. It's what my new book is about. It's called Don't Wait Till You're Dead. And really, when we die, we go through this life review process and we look back on our life and we see the purpose of our life, what we're supposed to do, the people that we've helped, the people that we've hurt, and we really understand what our life purpose was. Like, for example, David, one day when you pass on, may it not be for many, many years, but when it does happen, you're going to see your dad, you're going to connect with your dad, and you're also going to see why it was that your dad passed on early. And I'm going to share with you a story because I love the stories. So there was a woman that I just read for recently. We'll say her name was Sarah, and she had a mother that died young, just like your dad. And when I was connecting with her, it's actually funny, but when I was connecting with her, her mom had come through, and her mom had showed me that early on in life, before she was even born, her and her mom met in heaven, and they had this sacred agreement with one another. And the agreement is that her mom would die when she was just a little girl, and then Sarah would go on living life without her mom, right? It seemed like a cruel twist of fate, but really, this woman Sarah, became this amazing grief counselor, because she had gone through it. She had gone through the steps of not having her mom, of not having, and obviously a woman needs her mom, right? She went through all these painstaking tasks of getting older and not having a mother and not having someone to nurture her and to love her and to be there for her. And then, that whole journey that she went through, encouraged her to help the youth and to help children and to become a counselor. And I know that one day when she passes away, she's going to have that conversation with her mom and see, okay, listen, this is why. This is why we made this agreement. And I wouldn't have been in my life now without this happening. You're the perfect example of this, David, because you would not be here talking to me right now. You would not have this podcast. You would not have the millions of listeners that you do if your dad hadn't passed. But, and of course that seems terrible. And you would say to yourself, well, you know what? I wouldn't want the podcast if I just had my dad here, right? But this is what heaven knows that we don't. And that is that your father is you're going to see him again, right? It's not the end. So even if we live to be 100 years old, it doesn't matter, right? At the end of the day, you're going to see your dad again. And our time on earth here is very short.
I couldn't agree in regards to, again, alignment with, I think I've said, you took the words right out of my mouth in regards to, yeah, of course I trade all this for my dad, yada, yada, yada. But again, I think there's, we not having the abilities tuned in like you do, I just feel like there's just, again, in this meat sack, there's just things that we just don't have the capability of understanding right now and in human form with our five senses. I think there's just another level to this shit, as you've explained, that is just like far beyond our reach to sometimes comprehend. And I think that's where the invisible world of faith comes in many times. And of course, we get a little segues through words like yours, but it's like, I've heard stories and anecdotes, again, I go back to near-death experiences, not just mediumship, of, there is more of a reason for some of these things. And some people may tie that in with destiny, but I think there's a blend of destiny and free will. I think it's a little bit of both, in my opinion. I'm curious to see what you think of that. But so with what you're saying in this life review, where does reincarnation come in? Do you see that? Do you believe, is there reincarnation in your world?
Well, so I believe in reincarnation. I haven't had many experiences with it where, obviously a soul hasn't come back to me and said, oh, I reincarnated. Yeah, I'm still waiting for that experience to happen. But I have had similar situations with that. I'm going to share with you one. So, for example, I had this woman, and I'll never forget this reading. It's actually up on my YouTube page. There was a woman who came to me for a reading. She came to my online group reading. Her dad had passed away. And when her father had passed away, she was really, really upset because she lost her dad. And then she had also had a miscarriage as well. So that being said, she was so upset, because she's going through this profound loss. She automatically got pregnant again, thankfully, right after that miscarriage. It was a very, very early on miscarriage. She had gotten pregnant again, and she was convinced that that soul that she miscarried would be coming through in heaven. Well, when I went to go and give her the reading, her father had explained to me that she really, even though she had that miscarriage, that soul actually was being reborn to her. So in other words, because it was such an early pregnancy, and this was the first time I ever had this happen during a reading, because it was so early on, the soul had never come down. So even though to her it was a miscarriage and she went through the physical things as human that women go through with a miscarriage, she got pregnant right again, and that same person that she was, that same soul, that little boy that she was getting that little boy that was destined to be her son was the same soul. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and it's wild you say that, because not long ago, I'm not going to use names again, but I was told by a friend that, so I'm trying to line this up. So my friend's mother lost a child, and apparently, hopefully don't mind me sharing this story, but again, I'm not lining up names here, but it was similar in that sense where her now nephew, I forget how old, he's a young child, single digits, he just started calling her mommy. And that's his grandmother, and she was trying to correct him in a gentle way, like, no, my daughter is your mommy, and he's like, no, not me. He's like, you lost. She's like, he clarified that you almost had a baby when younger, and they never told her that, and he was calling her mommy, and saying, and kind of explaining, no, you had someone that passed away, right, mommy? He's like, and she was so confused, but then she started realizing that they never shared the information, obviously, as a young kid, that she lost a baby many years ago that was supposed to be a daughter, and now her nephew was clarifying that as himself, and it was like, it just kind of like rocked your world, thinking, okay, maybe, I don't know if he was just tuning into that, or is he that soul now? You know what I mean? Clarifying it. But either way, it's like those experiences that happen, sometimes I just think we can't prove sometimes exactly what you're experiencing. And the only way to have undeniable proof is to experience it and be told certain things from you. And experiences like that are just, I think, the only way to get this information, because you can't prove it, right? Like, you can't, there's no court of law that's like, this is what I've seen. It's just you talking to each other. And once you have this experience, then you know.
Well, I think that's the reason why, we have faith here in this world, right? It's like, for example, you can't prove that your mom loves you. You can't prove that you love your mom, right? You can't do it. There's no scientific proof to prove that, right? But that's where our journey here on Earth is so sacred and so beautiful. Is that at the end of the day, there are certain things that we have to trust. Just like love. Love is a really big thing, right? It's what everybody struggles here on this earth with. I'm not talking about just people who had passed on. I'm talking about, wondering, does my husband really love me? Does my wife really love me? Am I going to find true love, right? And I think that that's the reason why we struggle with that the most as well, is that there's no way. There's no way to tell if someone really loves you, if they're being truthful with you, what their feelings are. You have to trust them. You have to trust that connection. You have to have faith. That's where faith comes in.
That is such a phenomenal answer to answer that question. I'm gonna quote you. I'll TM that. I'll trademark that every time I respond to someone on friggin' social media. That gives me shit. So have you ever read the book Many Lives, Many Masters by Dr.
I've
Brian
heard
Weiss?
of it, but I haven't read it.
Do you have time to read? Because I'll send you the book. If you don't have time to read, I'm not going to send it to you.
I have no time to read, to watch TV, or to wipe my ass, David. I got to be honest with you. So I have a bidet. I haven't wiped my ass in years. All right. So I have no time, and it's sad because people always like, do you know this actor? Do you know this person? Do you know this? I'm like, I know nothing. I talk to the dead and only the dead.
All right. Well, then I'm not going to send you the book, but I'll give a quick synopsis, spoiler for anyone that's read the book. So Dr. Brian Weiss is a psychiatrist that, very institutionalized, went to some of the highest universities in the world, and didn't believe in past lives. And the whole story of the book is about his relationship with one woman who ended up regressing her into like 80 different lives. And he talked about a lot of the things. Again, he didn't believe it till he went through this. He thought she was schizophrenic, like very scientific, evidence-based, and then his mind was changed. And she keeps bringing up a lot of the things that you kind of mentioned with spirit guides and these people that are guiding us. So is it true from what your experiences, because you mentioned it already, that everyone, whether people believe it or not, we do have specific spirit guides with us at all times? Or are these people guiding us, people, if you will, spirits, entities, guiding us at certain moments when we need it? Or are they completely attached to us at all times?
No, they're with you at all times. They're with you at all times. But you have to decide whether or not you want to listen to their advice or not, right? Like, for example, that's the reason why I see many times, and why people come to me for readings, is people stuck in the same life cycle, right? Where there's something in their life that they're not getting, not learning, not understanding. And it keeps them trapped. For example, they keep dating the same type of guy or the same type of girl that, takes advantage of them and doesn't end up in a relationship. They keep, having the same issue with money, having the same issues with their health, having the same issues with this or that or the other thing, and they don't know how to get out of it. Well, it's because there's something there that you're not learning, or that you're not following what your spirit guide or what the guides are nudging you or pushing you towards, right? And it happens all the time because we have our own minds. No one's got puppet strings on us. So there's many times where our mind, takes over what our soul is trying to tell us. For example, you might be looking for love, and your spirit guide is saying, hey, your soulmate's over here, over here, over here. And then you're saying to yourself, yeah, but that's a hot girl, right? And you're like chasing after the the physical, as we all do, and not really understanding what your soul needs. Or you might think that you like one type of guy or one type of girl, and that's blocking you from the person that you're supposed to be. I mean, I've seen it happen. Being a medium, I've seen behind so many people's lives, and what causes us to stay stuck in these patterns. I'll give you an example for one. I actually wrote about it in my book. There was a woman that came to me, and she was just like so superficial, where, obviously, listen, we have to be physically attracted to a person, right? It's gonna happen. But this woman was like, I only want to date somebody who is 6'2". Like, they have to be over 6 feet, or I'm not dating them. And I'm like, I'm out. Right, that's it. And it's like, listen, it's very different than saying, well, I'm attracted to somebody or not. But she is like, no, this is what I want, because, she was really looking for a trophy husband. And it's like, well, okay, you can look for a trophy husband, and you probably will find somebody who's 6'2" that's attractive that will marry you. But is that going to be a true marriage? Is that going to give you your soul what it needs? And I've seen people, not understand this till later on. I've seen people put these expectations out there, or these limits out there, like, okay, I want to date somebody who, has a great job, is gonna be able to, put me on a private jet, do this, do that, do the other thing, and they set all these things up until later on, they realize that it's not true love. It doesn't give them what they need. And I've seen this happen many times. I've seen people actually block themselves from meeting their soulmate because they're so hung up on what type of job someone's going to have, how much money they're going to have, what that person is able to do from them from a financial standpoint instead of from a love standpoint, right? And that's one of the hardest things that I see people battle every day.
But how do you, so it seems like the people that are coming to terms and making that realization, they just got to go through the life experience. And that sounds less like the spirit guide, or maybe it's intertwined, but how do we listen to that? And how do we determine what's the spirit guide, intuition, and just noise in our head? Like, how do you decipher what are these advice that we're getting from the spirit world?
Well, the thing is that you have to listen to, first of all, there's a couple of different ways, right? So we could go all day talking about this, but just to kind of wrap it up, there's a couple steps that you can take. First of all, it's about thinking about your future. What do you really want in the future? And when you meet somebody, and you can use this in different parts of your life, but let's just use it for a relationship. When you meet someone for the first time, it's not just about the physical attraction, right? It's also thinking to yourself, would this person be a good mother or a good husband? Would this person be a good father? Would this person be, a good provider? Can you imagine yourself having fun with this person, having a family with this person if that's what you desire? Is this someone that you're going to be able to have longevity with, right? And you have to ask yourself these questions and really focus on your intuition. What's your intuition telling you? Is it telling you yes? Is it telling you no? Is your mind telling you what you want to see versus what you're actually feeling? Right? So that's really how you kind of test back and forth. And I see this happen many times. I see this happen so many times where, let's just take this current relationship situation, because I've seen this happen more times to count, where you might meet somebody and they check off all the boxes and you're like, holy shit, they're good looking, they make six figures, they're driving a Lamborghini or whatever it may be, right? I'm making it up. But your soul is saying red flag, red flag, red flag, that you're getting this weird feeling, but you don't listen to it because instead you listen to what's in front of you, what your eyes are seeing. So it's really, there's a saying that we say in my family is that I believe none of what I see and half of what I hear, right? And really that's what it's going to be, is that you really got to feel it out. You don't believe it till you see it. Always go with that inner feeling, because your intuition is not biased. Your intuition is going to give you what you need every single day.
Beautiful. I love that. And again, it goes back to how we feel about things, even what I was saying about beliefs, just about like, how does it feel? And I think we got to trust the way we feel. And I think it's difficult with all the noise we got going on. Listen, I feel like I could talk to you for 9 more hours. I want to be respectful of your time, so I'll get you out of here. But that one last question I want to ask you, and it's a 2-part question. What do you see that happens on the other side? And with whatever that answer is, are you scared of dying?
So I'm not scared of dying. I am more afraid of leaving my own loved ones, right? I think now looking at this, I'm not afraid of me actually going to the other side. I'm actually worried about, the people that I leave behind, because that's what I see every day. I see that, when we grieve a loved one, when we lose a loved one, your loved ones are fine. Doesn't matter how they died. Doesn't matter if they died in the most peaceful way, the most tragic way. They're fine on the other side. But the people here on earth are not. And that's where the double-edged sword comes in. And that's why I use my gift every single day to put people back in their loved ones, to get back in touch with their loved ones, to give them a little glimpse into heaven. Because I see spirit, I hear spirit, I get signs from my loved ones in spirit. I know they're there, and I can be at peace knowing that. So I want to give people that same sense of peace every single day. And really show them that, there is life after death. And what was the second question?
What the hell are they doing? Oh, hell, wrong
right.
word to say there, but what the heck are they doing on the other side?
So on the other side, I only got little glimpses. I don't know everything there is to know about heaven, because obviously I won't know until I fully cross over. But what I can tell you is that there's different, when we first get to the other side, you don't leave this world alone. You have angels, guides, and loved ones that help you make that transition over. You go through your life review, which is a process where you look back on your life. You see why you were put here on this earth, the people that you are meant to help, the people that you hurt, everything in between. And then you see the things that you did right, the things that you did wrong, where the lessons were. And your soul takes on a different journey on the other side. So, for example, on the other side, we could come back and be someone's spirit guide. We might help someone out from the other side. There's certain jobs that our loved ones in spirit actually do once they transition on and cross over. Some jobs are out in the open and spirit tells me about them, where other jobs are a little bit more hidden, a little bit secret, and I'm not allowed to know exactly what they do, right? Which always intrigues me. But I think the coolest thing is that the things that we don't get to do here on earth, the things that we don't accomplish or we don't finish, we do get another whack at it, so to speak, on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, I'm close to. I pretty much do this full time, and I've been in real estate since 2015, and I'm close to just transitioning fully out of that to just be doing this. And I just hope when that time comes to cross over, I'm not selling land in heaven, because I don't want to do it anymore. But I'm good at it, so nevertheless. But listen, man, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. Again, I could talk to you for 9 more hours. Thank God for your bidet, because I appreciate your time that you're giving me. And if there's, I know a lot of people already know of you, but I'll plug all your information in the bio for anyone that wants to find Matt. And if there's any other last words, as I say, you feel like dropping, if any, the mic is yours. But I'm very grateful for the opportunity. You're awesome.
Same here. The only thing I'd like to do is actually talk about my new book, Don't Wait Till You're Dead. This is my newest book. It's available right now, and it's all about the life review. And I wrote this because a lot of people, when I would talk about the life review, they wouldn't know what it was. They didn't know what a life review was, what that word actually means, and it's actually the most important part of death and dying. And what I've learned from the other side is that not only does our life have meaning, but it's never too late. It's never too late to meet your dream person, to meet your soulmate, to start that dream job, to learn about the other side, to enhance your psychic ability. We put limits on ourselves. So I wrote this book because how many times do people come up to me and say, I will never have that. Oh, it's too late. Oh, I if I was going to do it, I would have done it in my 20s. Oh, this, that, and this is all BS, because what I can tell you is that the spirit world, no spirit has come to me and said, oh, she's too old, he's too old, this won't happen for this reason. And what I can tell you is that heaven doesn't see the 99 reasons why something won't work. It sees the number one reason why it will. So Don't Wait Till You're Dead is all about recognizing the challenges in your life right now and turning them into opportunity. Every challenge that you had, whether it be a divorce, financial situation, whether it be a health situation, figuring out what it was meant to teach you, why you went through that journey, what you can do now with that information, and how you can help others. And at the end of the book, you actually go through your own life review. You answer the same questions that you answer when you die, and you put it all together now to live a better life. So that's the reason why I wrote it. And I think this aligns perfectly with what you do, David, because right? Your dad's death meant something, and you used it to create this whole catalyst to what you're doing right now. And that's what I'm hoping other people do as well, is that we don't have to go through a really tough situation and just say, wow, this sucks, poor me, right? We all go through a tough situation. I can tell you, being a medium, I read for everybody, and nobody has it easy. Everybody has their own story, their own pain, their own past trauma, their own regrets. And it's really about learning from them, because when you learn from them, you let go, and they don't become regrets anymore. They become the biggest life lessons that you'll ever learn.
I love that. And again, a lot of my audience is going to resonate with everything that you're saying. And I think it's one thing I just want to point out there is that regardless of course, there's two sides. Some people believe in connecting to the other side, some people don't. But regardless, when you just put those blinders away, for lack of better words, the message that I'm receiving from you applies to everyone, and it's positive, and it's the intention to live a better life and to all continue to heal and grow. So like regardless of wherever your information's coming from, whether people believe it or not, it's like the message just applies to everyone, and it's a healing growth message of learning and living a better life. So I just want people to realize that, and I'm gonna have to check out your book, and I'll put it in the link for anyone that wants to pick it up, and information on you as well. And again, very grateful for the opportunity. It's so cool to talk to you, and I really appreciate it.
Same here. Thank you for having me on.
All right, till next time, guys, thank you for tuning in to another episode.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Dead Talks. Please do not forget to hit the subscribe button and also the notification bell. That'll give you updates as to when we post a new video, more episodes, and more content in general. We are streaming in all the major podcast platforms, including Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and all that. And also find us on Instagram at Dead Talks Podcast or www.deadtalks.net. Thank you so much.